Hey everyone, welcome back. In our Infinite Wisdom, which you may have seen if you stumbled across my stream last night, we chased and accomplished the world's first Archwing level cap yesterday. Yes, we faced level 9999 in Archwing, waiting for Angels of Zariman. I guess we were bored enough that we needed something to do. Thanks a bunch to MrRoadblock for hosting this, as well as the rest of my team you can see down in the description, and he was the one who invited me on the run. It was really interesting to try out, and quite honestly turned out much better than expected. Would I suggest doing this yourself? Probably not. It was an interesting run, by being not interesting, but we'll get more into the run itself later. The theory crafting for it was actually pretty fun, so let's break down what my team did. Our team was Roadblock, Orican, Mark 1 Bogod, and I. We each had slightly different loadouts and synergies across the team, so it was pretty cool having it all come together. We did our run on Archwing Interception. What we first learned was that Archwing Interception is very boring. There was very little to do, and because of how strong certain Archwings were, mostly trivialized survival later onwards. The bigger question was DPS. We chose not to do it on Steel Path because going in blind with no prior information on how it would play out at level cap is probably not the best idea. An Ogma, which is the same flying unit from Plains of Eidolon that has drills for arms and drops carpet bombs as well as just being a large, obvious, and annoying enemy, has twice the HP of a heavy gunner. Meaning at level cap, it's twice as annoying. But we somewhat overestimated its tankiness because once again, normally we run on Steel Path Endurance. Normal mode means these units don't have 150% bonus HP, and more importantly, 150% bonus armor. So doubled health is still weaker than a Steel Path heavy gunner. And once again, because Archwings are so powerful and utility, there was very little downtime in DPS when we actually needed to kill something, meaning we could shoot with impunity. Another interesting factor is that frame passives, certain auras, and augments all can work while in Archwing. We picked Kaelis Uranus for Grineer unit since it was the earliest Archwing interception node available and thus the first endless Archwing node. These interactions were what let us reach round 100 smoothly. Originally, we thought we would hit level 9999 on round 66, but it turned out to be ramping slower than expected, which dragged a 5-hour run into 8 hours. Then we thought it was going to be round 85. Turns out, level 9999 takes 97 rounds to reach an Archwing interception. Now you know. And might as well round it out to 100 waves, we thought, since we were so close already. So what are these interesting interactions we used? Frame passives work. So we had a Saren present because she extends status duration by 25%, which would be on our teammate with the best built Nux primer. Nux is the highest status and consistent arch melee in the game for this purpose, so where we needed viral, this would be our answer. Luckily, we didn't really need it, and it was overkill even against Ogmas, letting our fully buffed DPS on our team one-shot even level 9999 Ogmas. We had 3 other Frosts on the team. All 3 Frosts were running the Biting Frost augment, because, surprise, this augment works well in Archwing. But how could we meet the freeze condition? Simple. Itzel's Cold Snap counts as frozen enemies, and because Archgun crit mons are so weak, the 200% crit chance and 200% crit damage from Biting Frost would be a massive DPS increase. In the end, this buff actually wasn't really that necessary, but for the scenario where we needed the massive DPS, we had one Itzel on the team to freeze priority targets for us to all shoot. What did we bring as weapons? Velocitus and Singus. Honestly, Velocitus is probably the best choice, but because of the Rivens we were looking for, I ended up with a Singus, which was the best runner-up. Why these two specifically though? They are the only Archguns that have respectable damage, respectable crit and status, and most importantly, viable slash weighting. Velocitus has 25% slash weighting. Singus has 34% slash weighting. We can fix these with Zodiac Shred to slash a lot more, and unlike options like Moslon, these two weapons have rather high dispositions, which gives a big boost in power. Honestly, after doing the run, I believe it could have even been done Rivenless, but why did we need Rivens in the first place? Because our answer to scaling armor and health was slash instead of raw damage, and bleed status gets double dips from Bane mods. But Archguns don't have Bane mods. However, you can get Bane effects from Riven's stat lines. In this case, the Singus Riven I had was a crit chance, crit damage, damage to Grineer minus Zoom Riven. This stat line is very similar to a primed Bane and double dips to boost my bleeds by 2.47 times more damage. So let's look at those builds, shall we? This was the Frost I ran. There weren't really any auras that were too important, but for my teammates on Velocitus, which is an extremely powerful weapon that has the potential to kill with just the raw damage, we opted for 4 corrosive projections, and also coaction drift. Biting Frost because it works with Itzel's Cold Snap, and I learned that adaptation does not apply to Space Archwing, even though it applies to Open World's Archwing. Rolling Guard also does not apply to Space Archwing either. Coaction drift though still applies to our aura. Energize still procs, but honestly isn't a huge issue because, well, I was on Amisha, and Arcane Aegis, which can infinitely regenerate your shields with no cooldown for 12 seconds if it's triggered, which does work in Space Archwing, as you can see here. That gave me even more room for a breather. The rest of your weapons you bring are irrelevant. I don't even know if Amalgam Serration works in Space Archwing missions. Focus School also irrelevant, and because Archguns are not classified as rifles, not even your Companion or Sentinel matters either because the Vigilante set bonus also won't work on them. For me, I took an Amisha as the safety tool to easily maintain points. Our team essentially consisted of 1 Itzel for Cold Snap on priority targets for Biting Frost, an Odonata because its one ability is essentially a Volt shield but gives heat instead, still has the crit damage from shooting through it, and for some reason appear to double dip orange crits. In fact, sometimes our Velocitus DPS main even saw red crits as a result of Biting Frost, when the Odonatas and Itzels teamed up together on an Ogma. But my build for the Amisha looked like this, just all 4 mods to boost duration, efficiency, range, and strength, and then energy max and flight speed. A 0 Forma Amisha. We don't need survivability because Amisha's 4 makes you completely invincible so long as your energy isn't maxed. It converts all incoming damage into energy. Your 3 is basically Gloom. It's channeled and has a 77.5% slow in this build with Primed Morphic Transformer, which lets you hit the Ogmas and shield Dargans in their weak spots easily. Your 2 is Magnetized, but for bullets only and will not draw enemies in, but for everything shot into the outer orb, it gets pulled towards the inner orb at the center. You yourself cannot shoot at enemies outside the orb, so make sure they're inside of the big one if you want to DPS them. And your 1? This is literally Revenant's Mesmer skin. That's it. The Itzel just needs range and Cold Snap. The Odonata can run whatever as well. Might as well throw in all 4 stat mods because you have the capacity on all Archwings even at 0 Forma anyways. And for the weapon, the Singus was built like so. Pure Slash with crits, status, and a double crit ribbon with a Bane on it. Honestly, the ribbon cost 100 plat. We had a similar Velocitus ribbon on the team that cost 400, and another similar Singus I think we bought for 40 plat. Pretty cheap all around, not popular rolls. So overall, it was easy to handle and set up. Critical Focus does trigger on ADS and Space Archwing, and it made a massive difference, especially when Biting Frost wasn't in play. It gives crit chance and crit damage, not regular damage, despite its wording. Zodiac Shred to boost our slash rate to about 50%, obvious fire rate, multi-shot, and crit damage since that's always lacking. Marked Target was important to boost our status from 30 to 66% on Singus since there weren't any other good mods to slot in. The Velocitus would be built similarly, but would charge rate from Shell Rush instead of automatic trigger since you'll only be using charge shots. And if you're on a Rivenless build, well, just drop the Riven for Parallax Scope for that 100% mod crit chance. And there you go, the world's first Archwing vs level 9999 run. Honestly, I definitely wouldn't recommend doing this as it's even more Resident Sleeper than your normal cap, especially because Amisha literally can't die unless you're tabbed out or forget your Mesmer skin stacks are empty like this. But now we know it's very possible, and even Steel Path is probably doable without too much difficulty. I think what we forgot the most was that there are no elite mobs like Demlists in Disruption here. We're essentially fighting trash fodder the entire time, which is why we're still able to slash them to death easily even at level 9999 without buffs. Outside of the Ogmas taking a little bit of effort, but once we buff up, we can just annihilate them with raw damage. What did you think? If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like, or better yet, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible. Like I've done with Garuda's rework, upcoming Angels of Zariman, and the Focus rework. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.